Good morning, guys. Today we are talking about how to find the area of a triangle. So the last video was on finding the area of a parallelogram, but also the area of a rhombus, so a shape that has four sides. And yesterday we talked about the area being base times height, so the bottom of the shape plus the height of the shape, but we talked about not the vertical height, but the actual height from the bottom to the top. So it needs to be a straight line. So today we're going to talk about triangles. So looking at this just kind of opening question or opening scenario, and then we'll talk about the area of a triangle and how to find that. So it says the front piece of the roof of a play set at a park is a triangle. What is the area of the triangle? So looking at this would be your triangle right here. So I have my triangle, and that is the shape that I am trying to find the area of. So if you look at a triangle, it's kind of a broken up part of a parallelogram. So we're going to look at that on this next slide. So looking at this next slide, I'm going to draw a triangle and a parallelogram just so you guys can see the two of them. So I have a triangle, and then yesterday we had a couple parallelograms that look like that, or a rhombus. So looking at a parallelogram, so this shape, you can kind of break it into two triangles. So if I were to draw a line this way, I now have a triangle right here and a triangle on this side. So if I were to, even with a rectangle, I can divide it in half into two triangles. So I can use the formula for finding the area of a parallelogram to figure out the formula for finding the area of a triangle. So this is what we discussed yesterday, was the area of a parallelogram was area equals base times height. So if I'm finding the area of a triangle, if a triangle is half of a parallelogram, I can just take the area of a parallelogram and then divide it by 2. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by a half. So then my formula for a triangle becomes area equals 1/2 times base times height. So I'm still multiplying the base and the height of the triangle, but now I'm taking 1/2 because it's really the formula for finding a parallelogram, but now I'm just breaking that shape in half. So it's really as if I had another triangle right here, and that kind of makes up an entire parallelogram. So it's just doing that same formula and then dividing it in half. So looking at our first example, it says find the area of a triangle with the given base and height. So remember, my formula was 1/2 times base times height. So I'm going to do 1/2. My base is 12, and then my height is 5. So remember, with multiplication, it doesn't matter in what order you multiply. So because I know you can do 12 times 5 first and then multiply that by 1/2, or you can do 1/2 times 12 first. So multiplying by a half is really dividing by 2, or if you want to think about it as terms as multiplying, remember when you multiply fractions, you multiply the two top numbers of the numerators by the bottom numbers. So if 12 is a whole number, I could make it a fraction by putting a 1 under it. So I would then have 1/2 times 12 over 1. So I'm just going to do that up here to show you. So this would be 12 over 2, which can simplify to 6. That was a really bad 6. So then I would have 6 times 5, which is equal to 30, and it would be 30 feet, and again, like yesterday, squared. So this would be your answer. Or you could have done 12 times 5 if you know that first, and gotten 60, and then done 60 times 1/2. and it would have been 60 over 2, which also simplifies to 30. So either way, you should have gotten 30 feet squared as your answer. Okay. So looking at the next example, and this is all you guys are doing in your homework, you have a couple questions where it will give you the shape. It won't exactly tell you this is the base, this is the height. It will give you a shape which will already be labeled. So looking at this example, I have a base of 5 and a height of 9. So I have 1/2 times base is 5 times height is 9. Again, you can multiply what you know in half, or you can do it in order. You can do 5 times 9 and then times 1/2, kind of up to you how you want to multiply them. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1/2 times 5. So this would be 5 over 2. So I had 1 times 5 is 5, 2 times 1 is 2. So I would have 5 over 2 times 9. Then I can multiply this together, and I have 5 times 9 is 45, and then 2 times 1 is 2. You do not leave your answer as a fraction. You need to divide it out. So I have 45 divided by 2. 2 goes into 4 2 times, which is 4. Subtracting it 0. Bring down my 5. 2 goes into 5 2 times again, which is 4. And I'm left with 1. I'm going to add a decimal because I don't want a remainder. So I added a decimal after the 5 and then added a 0. So now I can bring down a 0. And I know 2 evenly goes into 10 5 times. So I'm also going to bring my decimal up. And then this was 5. So 22.5. And again, inches squared. So you could have done this the same way that we kind of talked about the last one. You could do 5 times 9 and get 45, and then multiply that by 1/2, which would have given you 45 over 2, which was what we got right here. So still doing the same thing. You would have still had to divide 45 by 2, but either way, it doesn't matter when you are doing multiplication. So I am going to go ahead and look at one other question with you guys, and this isn't, I'm not going to write anything, I'm just going to talk about it. But one of the questions in your homework gives you a scenario where the base is in one type of unit and the height is in another type of unit. So just for example, if my base was 2 inches, but then my height was 4 feet, okay? If they are 2 different units, you cannot just multiply them together. I have to change either the inches so it's in feet or the feet so it's in inches. So on something like this, I would change inches to feet. So remember, there are 12 inches in a foot. So if I have 2 inches and each one of them is 12 inches to a foot, I would multiply 2 times 12. Nope, I did that backwards. I was going to change 4 feet to inches. Sorry. So if I have 4 feet, to changing that to inches, I would multiply it by 12 since I'm going to something smaller. So if I have 4 feet, there are 12 inches in each one of those feet. So I would have 4 times 12. My drawing tool is not wanting to draw. So then I would have 4 times 12, which is 48 inches. So now that this is in inches and this is in inches, I could do the same thing. On something like this, if I'm changing 2 inches to feet, because I'm going from something smaller to something larger, I would actually be dividing. So I would have to divide by 12, which would give me 1/6 of a foot, or 2 over 12 of a foot. So either way, this makes it a little bit more simplified when multiplying since it's a whole number instead of a fraction. The example in your homework isn't as difficult as that. It's not asking you to solve it, it's just asking you what to do. So if you watch this, it should be really simple to answer as far as what you need to do in order to change it, because they have to be the same unit in order to multiply them together. So I hope you guys have a great week. We are slowly finishing up with this chapter. There's different types of area that we'll keep working our way through and hopefully at least finish out the year being done with geometry. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I am more than happy to answer them. Bye, guys.